Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us. I'm sure most of you are here today for the Good Code Hackathon, so thank you for participating. And if you are not, today we're going to be going over our mobile SDKs here at DocuSign. I have a couple of our friends from our mobile team who are going to be joining us here in a minute, and we're going to do some demos for you guys. And I will also post the link to the hackathon so that you can sign up if you haven't already. So first, I want to welcome here Naveen Tulseela. He's going to be here to talk to you guys a little bit about the first part of our mobile SDKs, and then we'll also bring on Divya Vangara, who's another one of our mobile team members. So Naveen, go ahead and take it away.
Thank you, Kelly. Hi, welcome everyone. So today in the first session, we'll be talking about Android SDK. So in that, we'll talk about overview of what Android SDK is about and how to access the SDK, where to find the SDK, and what are the various resources that you can avail from DocuSign Android SDK. And then Divya will talk about iOS SDK and give a brief overview of what iOS SDK is all about and give various resources, how to access the SDK, and also we'll go through the code snippets. And then we'll open the floor for Q&A. Okay, with that, let's get started with Android SDK. So we have wide variety of feature set in Android SDK. So first of all, in order to use any Android SDK API, we need to authenticate the user with DocuSign. So SDK provides authentication APIs where the user can log in by providing the user credentials. So it presents the UI where user can enter username and password that user has created the DocuSign account. Once the user is authenticated, you will receive the success callback that authentication is successful, and then you will be able to use any of the DocuSign SDK APIs. So let's say you have a use case where you don't want to present the UI, but still want to get authenticated with DocuSign. We also present another login API which accepts authentication token, and you can provide the expires time. Basically, that's the validity of the token. So you can do authentication using JWT at the backend, and once you have the auth token available, you can just provide the auth token to our Android SDK API. Then we use the token for any SDK API calls that we do with DocuSign backend. Okay, that is about authentication. So once you authenticate, so we might need to cache the envelopes or templates. So there are two flows. First of all, let's say you are using the DocuSign template where you have created a template and uploaded the document in the DocuSign web portal. And then once you do that, you will have the template ID. So once you have the template ID, you can provide the template ID in the template API of DocuSign SDK and access all the template APIs from SDK. So wide variety of APIs such as caching a template, retrieving a template, deleting a template, updating a template. So you can use all those SDK APIs for using templates. And also we provide APIs where you can cache the envelopes if you want to store locally. So let's say you are using a template and in your app, you'd like to have the customer information, which will be pre-filled. So let's say in the document during signing, you can pre-fill all the tags in the document using the API. So for that, SDK provides a template API where you can pre-fill all the defaults and invoke the signing API. So that way you can get the user information dynamically pre-populated in the document during signing. And then let's say you don't want to use templates, but you have the envelope flow, so you might want to use envelope flow by creating envelope from scratch. For that, SDK provides API where you can build the envelope from scratch, like provide the documents, recipients, Recipients are basically the signers information. It could be a remote signer, in-person signer, and you can provide the carbon copy, like about the recipient who would like to receive the email after the signing is finished. And you can also provide the tax information in the document where the user need to sign. And then we also provide access to REST APIs. So let's say our SDK provides a basic set of APIs, like where user can use templates, pre-fill templates, sign the documents. But as you know, like DocuSign provides extensive APIs using REST calls. And without leaving the SDK, you should be able to invoke all our e-signature REST APIs right from the SDK. For example, you might want to retrieve the signature, right, using the REST API call. So you can invoke our REST API delegate and invoke the DocuSign REST API call. So with that, you get access to wide set of REST APIs. So this feature we recently introduced in 1.3.0. Okay, so now let's talk about signing feature. So yeah, this is the most important feature. So once we have all the pre-configuration done, like so downloading a template, caching, pre-filling, everything is done, and now it's a part of signing a document. So we provide the signing APIs where user can sign the document online or offline. So they could do it with using templates and without using templates as well. Let's say like you created the envelope from scratch, we do have the APIs where you can sign the document using the envelope flow. We also provide the signing API to sign the document using the template flow. So as the name mentioned, like so sometimes like users might not have better connectivity or spotty internet connections. So that's when you might want to use offline signing capabilities. So our SDK provides offline signing API. So in that scenario, we also provide online signing API, which provides the embedded signing ceremony. So last but not the least, so your app will have its own UI format or customizations. So our SDK screens will match the UI of the app screens. So for that, we provide the customization APIs, branding APIs basically, where you can change the color, title, you can put logo, and it will match the UI of your app. So this is about the basic Android SDK feature set. So now let's see how we can access Android SDK. So you can find the link for accessing Android SDK in the link mentioned here, github.com/DocuSign/Android SDK. And for the documentation, you can go to this docusign.github.io/mobile Android SDK. Okay, let's go through the SDK integration document, which is available in GitHub. So this is the GitHub repository where we hosted our DocuSign SDK. And as you see here, we have the docs folder, which includes the jar files, SDK documentation jar files. Like you can extract it and you will get all the documentation APIs. And similarly, for your convenience, we have also provided the e-signature REST APIs as well. So you can access any e-signature API documentation right from here. And then we have provided a Android SDK sample application so that you can take a look at the usage of Android SDK in this sample application. So this application is called TGK Capital Sample Application. And as you can see here, it covers both the template flow and envelope flow use cases. And you can do both online and offline signing ceremony with this application. So feel free to check out this application for usage. Okay, so now let's take a look at the integration document. So first of all, in order to use SDK, you might want integration key, and that you can get it like by creating a account with DocuSign at developers.docusign.com, and you will be getting the email and password for the account as well. And then once you have it, we can start the process for setting up the SDK. So first of all, we need to include the Gradle dependencies for accessing the SDK. So current version is 1.3.0, and these are the dependencies. Let's say you'd like to access e-signature APIs in your SDK, then you might want to include SDK eSign API 1.3.0 as well for accessing eSign APIs. So, and the rest of the steps are for ProGuard rules. As you know, like that is more for a release builds, so which might not be relevant now. But in case if you are pushing the product, your application to production, you might want to include these ProGuard rules in your application. And we also provide the code snippets, which includes the usage of SDK APIs. So as you see here, so first we need to initialize the SDK, where you can provide the integration key, client secret, and redirect URI. So all this information, you can find it from DocuSign web portal. So after creating the account. So once you initialize the SDK, it's time to authenticate, right? So as I mentioned earlier, so you can log in using OAuth, or you can log in using auth token. So if you log in using OAuth, so it presents the UI where user enters user credentials. So once the login is successful, then you get the callback in the listener that the authentication is successful. So similar way, if you have any error during authentication, you get the on error callback in the listener, indicating the call is unsuccessful, and you will be provided with the details of the error. So if you don't want to have the UI during authentication, so you can use login with access token. So where you will do your own authentication at your backend and using JWT or any other approach. So once you have the auth token obtained from your backend, then you can pass the token to SDK. So we'll use this token in our future SDK calls. Okay, that's about login. Similarly, let's say you're done with using DocuSign, and if you want to log out and clear any cache that are associated, you can use logout API, which clears the cache that is associated with the DocuSign. Okay, so now let's take a look at the various APIs that we have for templates. So we have an API called getTemplates API, which takes a filter and have a listener. So basically, this will retrieve the list of templates. And you can use this API in a lazy loading way. For example, the templates list could be enormous, right? There could be thousands and thousands of templates. So in that case, you can provide the start position and the count in the templates filter, which will fetch only that number of templates initially. So let's say you want to get only first 20 templates, right? So you can define that here. So that way it will load the 20 templates, and you can keep loading the templates in a, for example, in a recycler view, something like that. So once you fetch the templates, you can also retrieve downloaded templates. So for that, we provide an API called retrieve downloaded templates. Basically, as the name says, it just retrieves the list of downloaded templates. And we can retrieve the details of a template using getTemplate API, where you present the template ID. So this template ID is the one which you will get it from your DocuSign web portal when you create the template. Or when you get the list of templates in the previous call, you can provide the template ID of the corresponding or matching template. So this will fetch the details of the template in the callback for DS template listener. So you will get the template definition, and you have all the details of the template there. So once you fetch the template, you can cache the template, right? So this will store the template locally on the device. This is especially useful when you are using the DocuSign API or signing the document in spotty connection or offline signing. So you can cache the template when there is better connectivity and store it locally. And then you should be able to use the template in no network zones as well. So that is about cache template. So so anytime you will be able to retrieve the cache template using retrieve cache template API. And then you should be able to remove the cache template, which is cached earlier, using remove cache template API. Okay, so that's about storing and caching of templates. Now, let's say we want to do the actual signing using template. So for that, we provide API called use template offline. If you want to sign the document using offline and using templates. So in this API, if you see, you can provide the template ID and you can provide the template envelope defaults. So these envelope defaults are the prefill values where you prefill the template with details that you want to get pre-populated in the document for the tags. So similarly, we provide the option like where you can insert a additional PDF document, like it could be at the start of the document or end of the document. So you can also provide those details as well. And then we have a listener. Obviously, like once the signing ceremony is finished, you will get the callback on complete that signing is successfully completed with the envelope ID in the callback parameters. Similarly, when you cancel the signing ceremony, you get the on cancel callback. Similarly, if there is an error during signing, you get the on error callback with the template exception details. So that's about using offline signing API using templates. Excuse me. So similarly, we have use template online API, which has similar signature. And so as the name says, you can use this API if you want to use the template for signing during when we are online. For example, it uses online signing basically. Similarly, here also you can provide envelope defaults, but this will launch online signing ceremony or embedded signing. So there might be a case like where you might want to update template, because earlier we cached the template, but let's say you might want to update the template in your DocuSign web portal. In that use case, you might want to update the cache template, which was stored locally on the device. So in that case, invoke update cache template. So using this API, we will update the cache template, which is stored locally. So here we provide the detailed steps like how to use the template, starting from fetching the list of templates till signing the document using templates. So that's about template flow. And now we'll go through the envelope creation flow. So far we have used templates. So now there might be a use case like where we don't want to use the template, but we'd like to create the envelope from scratch. So for that, we provide the API called dsenvelope.builder, and where you can provide the envelope details such as document, like so what document you want to use during envelope creation, and who are the signers that you want to be a part of the signing ceremony. And you can provide all the recipient details here, and provide the tabs information. If it's in-person signer, you can define the type of the signer here, and also provide the signer details, host details, recipient ID, routing order, and so on. Similarly, once you provide the recipient details here, then you can also, create the custom fields as well. So you can build all the envelope details using this envelope builder object. So this will actually create the envelope object. So once you create the envelope object, you can invoke compose and send envelope API, which will create the envelope and cache it locally. So far, we haven't started signing yet, but what we have done so far, take the signer details from your application, create the envelope, and then invoke compose and envelope, which will create and store the envelope locally. So once we store the envelope locally, we can launch the signing ceremony. So when we invoke compose and send envelope in the success callback in on success API, we get the envelope ID of the envelope that is cached locally. So you can provide that envelope ID here in the sign offline API, signing delegate.sign offline API, and provide that envelope ID which was created earlier. So this will launch offline signing ceremony. And so once the signing ceremony is finished, you get on success if the signing is successful, and similarly other callbacks. So similarly, we also have the sign online API where you can provide the envelope ID. And then once the signing is successful, you get on success. So if there are any exceptions, you get on error. And if the signing is cancelled, you get on cancel. And in between recipients also, if there are any errors, you get the corresponding recipient errors per signer. So that's about signing. And then, so once we finish signing, so far during signing process, especially with offline signing, we haven't used any network there. And then once the offline signing ceremony is finished, then we need to sync the envelope to DocuSign, because the document is signed locally and stored on the device. So now we need to sync the envelope to DocuSign. So for that, we provide an API called Sync Envelope API, where you provide the locally cached envelope ID. And then once the envelope is synced successfully, then as the name says, you get on success if the sync is successful with the local envelope ID and the server envelope ID as well. So server envelope ID is the one that is created at DocuSign backend, and then you get the reference to that envelope ID indicating the envelope is successfully synced at DocuSign. So similarly, we have sync all envelopes API, where I mean, you can use this API especially when you have multiple documents that are signed and cached locally, and you might want to sync all the envelopes at once. So in that case, you can use sync all envelopes API. And then we provide a listener, as the name says, once the envelope is synced successfully, you get the envelope sync success call. And similarly, if there is any error, you get on envelope sync error API. And once all the envelopes are synced successfully, then you get on complete, indicating the sync process is finished. So this is about syncing envelopes. And then, so let's say you are using the demo environment initially during development. So you'll be pointing the environment to demo environment using the API as shown here. And then let's say when you are about to release it to production environment, then in that case, you should point the environment to production environment using the SDK API call. And then we have eSign REST API invocation from SDK. So basically, in 1.3.0, we introduced eSign REST API feature where you can invoke all the REST APIs right from SDK. So for that, we introduced eSign API delegate. So where you can create API service. So this user's API here, this is from the eSign API. This is not from the SDK. This is from the eSign REST API, but still packaged as part of our SDK now. So you get access to those APIs right from our eSign API delegate. And then once the REST API call is successful, you get on success callback here. And then if there is an error, you get on error callback. So we provide invoke API, where you provide the listener to track the state of the REST API call. So we have shown the snippets here for in Java as well as Kotlin here for invoking eSign REST APIs. So this is pretty much basic overview of what are the various SDK APIs we have in Android SDK. Okay, let's switch gears a little bit. Okay, so remember we talked about the documentation for SDK, and so this is how it looks once you extracted and launched it. So the main class is a DocuSign class, where you have a bunch of APIs to initialize the SDK, set the environment, get the corresponding template, signing delegate, template delegate, etc. And then you can also take a look at DS template delegate. DS template delegate, as we talked about those APIs. So you can find all the documentation for those APIs here. Use template offline, use template online, cache template, get templates, and so on. So using that documentation jar for SDK, you can get full access to the SDK documentation. And then if you want to use any REST API calls, so you can get the we also have the other documentation jar, which includes the documentation for REST API calls. So once you extract it, so it will look like this. So this includes the detailed REST API documentation. So for example, if you want to use any envelopes API, if you want to use envelopes API from e-signature, so you get access to those APIs as well, right from our SDK. You can take a look at these APIs, and yeah, you can use right from our SDK. So detailed documentation is provided here, how to use them. Yeah, I think this is pretty much about the documentation. So let's go back to our slides. And then if you have any questions about using Android SDK, we created a blog which includes frequently asked questions. You can take a look. We have provided the URL for that as well. You can take a look at that. And then if you come across any issues or if you have questions about using Android SDK, feel free to log a GitHub issue at the repo where we hosted our DocuSign SDK. And then we have also provided a Stack Overflow link for taking a look at the questions related to our Android SDK in the link provided here. If you want to get the overview of how the demo looks like using SDK, so we have created a video in our previous webinars. So take a look at the video. So that includes the demo of the TGK sample application, which is integrated with our Android SDK. And also, like we did a code walkthrough of all the SDK APIs that are used in the TGK sample application. Okay, I think that's pretty much okay. With that, I'll hand over to Divya, who will talk about iOS SDK. Over to you, Divya.
Thank you, Naveen. Can you see my screen? Yes. Okay. Thank you, Naveen. So this is Divya again from DocuSign Mobile's team, DocuSign's mobile team. So today I'll be presenting some of our iOS SDK features. Similar to Android, we support all the APIs. So you can authenticate our SDK, you can store envelopes or templates, then we allow you to pre-populate data to the templates that you have created. If you choose to create envelopes from scratch, yes, we have the APIs too. You can create documents, recipients, tabs. You can add all those fields and you can compose the envelopes. Along with that, we also support offline caching, like caching a template, and then you can sign the template. So our mobile SDKs are robust and very useful in offline cases. So let's say you have a spotty internet connection or you have no internet connection, we can still carry forward your DocuSign's signing experience. So along with that, we also allow you to customize so that you can seamlessly integrate our SDKs into your mobile apps. So customization includes, like, if you, let's say if your branding is like orange color or something, orange color navigation bar, or maybe button colors or red, yellow, you can just customize it using our SDK. Now, let me take you to a few use cases that we have. Let's say we are very popular in hosting in-person signing sessions. So I'm providing some of the use cases where you can leverage our SDK and continue your signing. For example, let's say in case of field sales and services, for instance, take an example of a sales representative who goes door to door in order to collect the contracts and take the signature in order to facilitate the business. In this case, you can just create a template and then you can get in-person signing from that particular person and continue your business. In a sector like construction, basically construction places are doesn't have a good internet connection. In those places, like let's say you want to take work orders, like let's say you want to get some equipment in order to build something, you need to take work orders. You can download a template, cache it, and then without network you can sign, take the work orders, and then sync it back when you get internet connection. So along with construction, there are some. These are some of the sectors where you can use our SDK and build a good customer experience. So for the good code challenge as well, you can use some of these use cases and then build a good mobile app. So with this, I'm gonna take you through the code and I'm gonna explain each and every step how you can enable the DocuSign experience. First of all, in order to enable the DocuSign SDK, you need to authenticate. So that is the first step where you have to do it. And then with authentication, you get access to all our APIs. Like you can fetch templates, you can create envelopes, you can sync it back online. Once you get access to our APIs, so this is the place where you decide whether you want to go offline or online. So caching has to be done when you are online. Once you cache a template, now you may choose to go offline or online. So at this point, if you want to pass some default pre-populate certain data, you can still do so, and then before calling our APIs, you can pre-populate the data, and then you can send the template, or you can sign the document. From here, let's say if you choose to do offline, then at this point, once you finish the signing, then you are supposed to go online in order to sync the document. So now I'm going over each step. So how do you authenticate our SDK? So on my right, you can see an image of our sample app. So this is a fictional sample app, which is called Elura Insurance. It's an insurance company where customers wants to create claims and collect documents. So first, you have to authenticate our SDK. This is the first and foremost step. Once you authenticate the SDK, so we have provided DSM manager class. So all your setup, logging in, logging out, everything is available on DSM manager class. So you can set up with a default configuration, or if you choose to alter certain configurations, you can do so. Once you set up our SDK, now you are supposed to log in into our SDK. So this is the second step where users will get an opportunity to explore our APIs once you log in. So currently we are supporting access token. So all our SDKs are built on top of e-signature REST API. So basically you can get access token. There is a very handy tutorial. It's a wonderful tutorial on our Dev Center, how to get the access token. So once you get the access token, then you get a chance to explore our APIs, as I mentioned before. So for templates, typically we have a DSM templates manager. So similarly, for envelopes, we have DSM envelopes manager. So all the APIs are listed within this class. Now, once you create an instance of DSM templates manager, so you can call one of our APIs, which is list templates, which will fetch all the templates that you have. And let's say if you have any problem with the login or any other issues, you would get an error back. Once you list templates, so every template object is associated with an ID. So the template ID, you can either see it on your DocuSign web portal, or once you fetch the template within that object, you can find the template ID. This template ID is needed in order to cache a template. So on my right, let's say I have defaulted three templates: auto insurance, defaults, auto insurance claims, home insurance claim adjuster. So these are the templates. And if you want to cache one of those templates, you need to provide the specific ID associated with that template. Now, once you cache the template, for a good customer experience, you want to pass the customer data over to your signing ceremony. So in order to do that, you need to provide the defaults. So we have provided an API called DSM envelope defaults. This is a class where you can pass tab data and other properties where you can populate these tab values and other things. So now, at this point, you are defaulting certain customer information onto your envelope. So in order to do that, just to the instance of envelope defaults, so there is a property exposed called tab value defaults. You need to pass this data. So this data is nothing but a dictionary containing tab ID and its value. So, for example, here the client's name is Tom Wood, and then you need to default. If you choose to default that client's name, yes, you can do so. Next, not only we support envelope defaults, tab defaults, we also support recipient defaults, which is like you can default a recipient directly when creating an envelope out of a template. So you can do simply by saying envelope defaults dot recipient defaults and then pass the data. Now at this point, all your information from your app has carried forward to our DocuSign ecosystem. So on this signing ceremony, so this data, you can see the Tom Wood on the top, and then we have defaulted the address as well, and then other parameters. Now, so there is, you want to get a signature from the client. Yes, there is a signature tag over there. You can just present it and take the signature from him. In order to present this, there is a handy API on the templates manager called present send template controller with template ID. You need to pass the template ID here. And if you choose to pass any default values, you can do so by passing the envelope defaults object here. And there are some use cases where you want to, where users want to provide a identity proof or some kind of document you want to append to the signing ceremony. So in that case, you can pass the PDF through our API. And you may choose to insert it at the beginning or at the end. And then here you decide whether you want to go offline or online. So if you choose for a demonstration purposes, let's say we choose offline here, and then you pass the offline mode here, and then it just presents the signing ceremony. So once you sign the document, so you need to create an instance of envelopes manager because you have signed an envelope here, and then you need to sync it back. On my right, you can see a pending envelope which is to be synced. So once you call sync envelopes on the envelopes manager, the envelope that you have cached will sync to the server. Now let's go to the integration steps and what comprises the SDK. Now our SDK is a dynamic framework, which we officially support Cocoa pods. So you just need to call pod DocuSign on your pod file. Second, we support 4 versions behind iOS 10 plus. We support it through our SDK. You can launch iPhone or iPad apps as you wish. And then we have very robust documentation available. We have numerous examples, startup bootstrap guides. We have every API, detailed information about every API. And then we also have sample apps for you to test and try it out. So with this, for the hackers and developers, yes, we have very good documentation on developers.docusign.com. So in order to use our SDK, you need to create a integration key for yourself. And then so there is a step-by-step process how to create integration key on our dev center. So developers.docusign.com. So for all users, offline signing and templates are enabled by default. So you don't have to change any configuration on your admin account. Now, coming to native iOS SDK, so we have documentation available on developers.docusign.com, and then the sample app, our framework, is available at public GitHub, github.com/docusign/native iOS SDK. Let me go over the documentation first. So when I click on that link, so developers.docusign.com/docs/iOS SDK slash index.html. When I go there, you can see our official DocuSign page, and there is a section for developers on the top menu bar, and then on the hamburger on the right, on my left, you can see getting started, how to create a developer account, and then all the details, how to get an integrated key and some of our APIs. And we have a wonderful model diagram, how the class is defined and other stuff. You can refer this to get a good understanding of our API. So we have so if you choose to do manual integration, yes, we have some good documentation on how to integrate our SDK with some pictures and other stuff. And then we have two sample apps that we have built for you. So this fictional sample app that I have demonstrated before. That is Allura Insurance app that is built on Objective-C. And if you want a Swift example, we have TGK Capital, which is another fictional app. And so this is built on Swift. So we also have reference docs. This is where all developers go to look at our APIs. For example, I'm going to search DSM Manager. You get that. So now we have all the documentation related to the DSM Manager. You can see the default configuration. You can see the login methods. You see logout method and other configuration methods here. Similar to this, there is one important class you need to be aware of, that is DSM notification codes. So we typically communicate to the client apps using notifications. For example, you have finished a signing ceremony, so we communicate back using DSM signing completed notification. So the client apps needs to observe or subscribe to our notification and observe for the callbacks. Similarly, we have, let's say for some reason your signing ceremony is cancelled. Let's say user decided not to proceed, or sign later, you get a notification back to the client app. Not only we support signing notifications, we have handy, very good documentation on each notification and the purpose of each notification too. So clients, they have to listen to user info object on the notification in order to get more details. And also we have notifications with respect to syncing, we have notifications with respect to caching the template, and we have notifications with respect to signing the template. So this is our documentation. So this is a one-stop source for all the documentation related stuff. Now I'm going over to our public GitHub repo. So this one has all the examples. For example, you want to install our DocuSign SDK, say, hey, pod DocuSign, and then you get add it to your pod file, and then run pod install in order to fetch the framework, and then an workspace is created from your project, and then you can just launch it. Next, we have support materials. Like if you don't know how to use envelope defaults, you don't know how to default a template. So we have provided a very good material in order to create templates or envelopes. So this is how you default recipients. So this is how you default a tab with some data, and then this is how you provide custom fields, and then this is how you present a template. So we have all the screenshots and some examples you can explore on our public GitHub page. So I'm gonna show you one the sample apps that are available on our public GitHub. So this, if you look at our master branch, so our current version is 2.5.2. So this is our current version, the latest. And so these are the sample apps that we have. DocuSign SDK sample Objective-C, sample Swift, samples. We have built a Swift UI too, which to if you want to test it out. And then we have support materials, and we have changelog, where you can go and see what has changed from the past releases. This is a good place to check what has changed from the past frameworks, from past releases. So now the important step is, let's go into one sample app. So this is DocuSign SDK sample app. So we have already added pod file to it. So for demonstration purposes, I'm going to show you how to integrate DocuSign. First, you need to download the SDK. So you can do it so by going here, code, you can just download the zip file. So for today's session, I have already downloaded it. I'm going to share it to you. So this is my repo. If you look at this repo, so I have all these files listed here, all the sample apps that listed here. DocuSign SDK sample Objective-C, Swift UI. So I'm going inside one of the sample apps. So if you look at the contents of this sample app, you have pod file. And then there is a template PDF, and then there are set of some other files. So now what you have to do is just do pod install. It analyzes the dependencies, and then it fetches all the pods. Now first things first, do check your pod version. What is your pod version? We officially support 1.10.1. You can download CocoaPods. So there is CocoaPods. You can go to CocoaPods website. So this is how you install CocoaPods onto your terminal. Sudo gem install CocoaPods, and it fetches the latest pod. Now, once you created the pod, what you can do is let me increase the font size so that you can see it a little clear. Okay, let me clear the terminal. Now we have these files. We have installed pods. How do I check whether I fetched the latest DocuSign pod? Go to podfile.log, and then you see the DocuSign 2.5.2, which is the latest available framework, latest available release from us. This is 2.5.2. It fetched the latest version. Now, so I'm going to open the workspace. So this is the Xcode. We officially support the latest Xcode. So go here. So let me show you the pods file. Okay, here we have downloaded the DocuSign pod. You can see the framework available here. And then, so in order to run your mobile app, once you build the app and run it, you see our mobile application here. For security purposes, we don't provide any data or regarding integrator key or default username or password. So just go to Profile Manager on the sample app, and you can add all your details here. So add integrator key that you have created for your application, and then username, password, and you can run through our sample apps. So this is the entire native iOS SDK. So we are open to questions now. If you have anything, we can answer now. Oh, thank you. So Swift and Swift UI are both different. Swift is a programming language. Swift UI is a new declarative style of creating interfaces. So Swift UI sample app is just one another sample app which we have created a sample interface. So to demonstrate that we also support that Swift UI. Any other questions?
All right, if we don't have any other final questions, I think that's it, and we'll wrap up. And I'll just say thank you so much to Naveen and Divya. And if you guys do have any other questions, please bring them over to the Hackathon Slack. Thanks so much, guys. Bye-bye.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, Kelly. Thank you for having us. And for all the developers, good luck with your hackathon. We look forward to seeing great mobile applications that you build using our SDKs. And for one last time, like we're gonna show some developer resources where you can go and create issues if you have. Like we have Stack Overflow support, tag DocuSign API there, and then we have a support center. If you have any issues with our frameworks, you can reach out to them. And then we have very good videos on YouTube, DocuSign for developers. You can find all the information there. And so we have DocuSign University. If you want to get used to our DocuSign ecosystem, you can go to DocuSign University and learn stuff. So with this, we thank you and good luck.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye bye.